So hello everyone and welcome. Today I wanted to take a look at what needs to be done in order to make sure that the inevitable sequel to Yooka-Laylee is going to become a great game. So Yooka-Laylee launched and there was a bit mixed feelings here and there. Like, many people did think it was a really great game. There were also a bunch of people who thought this game was not actually that good. There were some who were disappointed, some who who felt alright about it. Personally, I think it could have done a bit better, but it's an alright game, better than average, I would say. So, let's actually take a look at what this game did well, that the sequel would also have to do well. Obviously, I could just list off a bunch of stuff that didn't go so well, and I will do that later in the video, but right now let's actually take a look at the stuff that the game did well, what it needs to incorporate into the sequel as well, to make sure that the stuff that's already good stays good. So, for example, the main thing about it is the humor and the style. Like, you have all these great characters in there with their very great, very well designed. They have there's a great humor everywhere in the characters and story, and in all the dialogue that's going on. The style of how everything looks, how everything fits together, is really nicely done as well. It feels really nice to look at, and if you imagine if you were in this fantasy world, that would be a fantasy world that you would like to be in, because everything just seems so fun and happy. And yeah, that's pretty much about it, about the style and humor. That one definitely needs to stay intact for the sequel as well. I think that the number one thing that needs to stay intact in that area. The other thing that should stay like this for the most part is the controls. So with some exceptions, for example the flying, which was supposed to be changed with the patch, but didn't actually notice anything different. Maybe they didn't actually change it, I don't know. It said it in the patch notes. But apart from the flying, the controls are very well done, actually. It feels really nice, for example, to roll around, to boost around a bit, go around corners. It's really nice to control. I can do jumps like that, no problem. Turn a bit, go up here. Oh, very nice. Feels so nice. It feels very nice. Just break into a roll and go around and do some stuff. Very nice to do. If you're flying straight, then flying is also pretty nice. If you're going around corners, maybe not so much, but that could be changed as well. Like, maybe a bit of improvement, but for the most part, movement feels nice, and it's fun to just run around. If you have a platformer and it's fun to run around, that's a very good thing. It's a very good thing if it's just fun to run around, like movement-wise. So these are like the two main big points that I would like the sequel to incorporate as well. The style and humor and the movement and controls. For the most part, you can improve some of it here and there as well, as always. Now, to get more into what I think the sequel would have to do better is, well, there's a multitude of little problems that I think could be solved with very pragmatic solutions. The first one would be more external testing, or in general external testing, because I don't know if they did that at all. So you have a bunch of problems with the game. For example, you have the Cardos sections and the Retro Arcade sections. So the problem with the Cardos sections initially was that the hitboxes for everything, they weren't quite that good. You would very often you'd hit stuff that you didn't think you'd actually hit, and you also had the problem that you had the cooldown on some of your abilities, like shooting a boulder has a cooldown on it, speeding up and slowing down has a cooldown on it. You didn't really know how long the cooldowns were, and if you combine that with the fact that the hitboxes weren't quite on point, and the fact that a lot of this comes down to planning ahead, because since your moves have a cooldown and you need specific moves in specific spots in order to get all the gems that you need, and you need to get a certain amount of gems, sometimes you can't look ahead quite enough because it goes around a corner or the camera doesn't quite show you what's ahead. So if you combine all of these different aspects together, it made the color sections not that enjoyable. They did fix the cooldowns on your abilities not being visual. Now you can see the cooldowns on your abilities. You can the hitboxes are a lot more spot on. Like that, what I did right there, where I landed right in front of a barrel and shot the barrel, that would have hit me if it was on the old patch. I can guarantee that that would have hit me on the old patch. But now with the new improved hitboxes, and also the fact that boxes, while they explode, they don't hit you anymore, which was a thing in the old patch, now it's actually a lot nicer. So they have improved that at least, but obviously for the sequel, it needs to be like this from the start, and I think they could also improve the camera. I really liked in the old Donkey Kong Country series that even though you didn't quite see that much of the tracks, you still saw enough in order to be able to react to everything that was going to happen in a meaningful way. And the thing is, I think the camera shows you about the same amount of track in this game than it does in Donkey Kong Country. But the problem is because your moves have different cooldowns now, and you need to have certain moves available at certain points to get the gems, and some gems need some setting up to do. Maybe you need to do a certain jump here to get on a specific track, so you can jump to another track or whatever and get another amount of gems. So because of all of that, you need to be able to plan ahead more, and with the way the camera is fairly close to you and doesn't show you what's up ahead, and doesn't show you around corners, there's like a lot of corners that you go around, you can't really see what's ahead. That is also a problem with that made Cardos not quite that well. So if there's a sequel, I still want there to be Cardos sections, because they can be really great if they're well done, and they're really awesome as well, but you need to make sure that the design for those is on point. And that is something where, to get back to my point, the external testing would have probably helped a lot. So when you have something like the Cardos tracks, if you have someone internally testing it, or multiple people testing it internally, they probably test it a lot at different iterations. And if you test it a lot, you get used to it after a while. After a while, you get used to the fact that maybe the hitboxes aren't quite on point. Maybe you are in an earlier cycle of development where you're like, okay, the hitboxes, they are not quite on point yet. Anyway, we're gonna fix that some point later. Right now, let's just see if it feels alright. So you kind of get used to the hitboxes, you get used to the tracks, because you play the tracks multiple times, so you don't quite realize that planning ahead is something that becomes a problem. The cooldown becomes a lot more, cooldowns on all the different abilities becomes a lot more, like it's something that you get used to after a while as well, and you kind of get it in your head how long the cooldown is all the time, so you don't have to see what the cooldown is anymore. So that helps a lot, and in general you just get really good at it, and you don't notice anymore that there's certain problems with it. But if you had, like, let's say towards the end of like alpha or whatever, like getting to beta stage of the game, you were to open it up to external select testers, that you would have them sign an NDA, of course, have them sign an NDA and have them test the game a bit, and have them have feedback on specific parts of the game. You could also have this be like a backer reward. If you back like $100 or $500 or even more, who knows, you could say like, okay, you get put into the alpha testers or beta testers. If it like probably alpha testers would be a lot of money, and beta testers would be not so much money on the reward tier. You could also have like select people that you already know from the community, like now that you've already have a game released, like Yooka-Laylee. I've heard that you guys watch a lot of saying you guys as in Platonic, if Platonic is watching, I've watched a lot of other people, and if there are some people around that you're like, okay, maybe these guys, they have a lot of people that watch them, or since it's an NDA, it doesn't actually matter how much watch them, but we think that these people are like people that would be good testers or whatever, you could put them on as well. And between backer rewards and just inviting people, I think you would be able to find a good amount of testers and a wide spread of testers, and also have people in there that know their stuff. And with that, I think it would be pretty good to figure out what is sort of not quite right with the game and what is a lot better with the game. And something else that would have helped is the Rextro arcades. So a lot of people said that when Rextro arcades came out, or in general when the game came out, Rextro arcades, some said they were too hard. I personally don't quite agree with that. I think the difficulty is actually quite alright for them. If difficult is actually on point in my opinion. I don't mind it if it's a bit harder in some certain sections. What I didn't like is the fact that the problem with the Rextro arcades were that, for one, you had to play every arcade twice, even if you got the high score already, and that the problem with that is that if you already, for one, if you play the game multiple times, like if you play Yooka-Laylee multiple times, you have to play every single one of these twice, all the time, like, which is a thing in speedruns as well. Like if you're speedrunning the game, you have to play all of these twice every time, and it gets really on your nerves, especially because you're smashing the record on your first try anyway, so why play it twice? So that's something. And there's also some really weird design choices in some of these, like for example the fire here. I don't actually know when the fire actually changes. I still can't tell you when the fire actually changes. I really don't know. I think it's on a timer. I'm not 100% certain on that even. Like some people have got it into their memory what the timer is. I really don't know. Most of the time I'm just going over it and hoping it doesn't hit me. Like stuff like that is something that you would have noticed as well with external testers that would have been like, hey, I don't know quite what the cycles for these are, and I've not gotten that used to the controls or everything yet, but I notice that when I play this game, and I go through Cardos Racing, for example, that I'm having trouble getting over these fire spewers without them hitting me all the time, like that, because they just come up without any warning, like there was no way of knowing there that this was going to happen. Something like that is something that external testers would pick up on immediately. And if you have a different spread of people, like say you have some speedrunners in there, you have some casual people in there, you have some people that you don't actually quite know what they're like in there. You also get some people, some complaints maybe, or some suggestions in there that you didn't even know were gonna be a thing. Like for example, in here, maybe the fire spouts thing is not a problem if you're just playing through the game casually and you just beat the game once or twice and that's about it. That's it. You play the game twice. If the fire hits you a bunch, you're like, okay, whatever. But then if like a speedrunner watches this and plays this, and you're like, oh, I'm trying to speedrun this, but all this fire keeps hitting me and it's wasting my time. Oh, I don't like that. That's something that different people would react differently to, but it's something that could be fixed and would be a benefit to everyone once you fix it. Something like that. Also, the overall gameplay of Extra Arcade could have been improved. I think, at least in my opinion, Cardos Racing is the only minigame that has good gameplay. All the other ones have gameplay that is fairly boring, I would say. Like for example, the isometric palace minigame that is in there. You just run around a bunch. The gameplay for that is not very interesting at all. You just run around a bunch and it's a bit icy, whatever. That's not really very interesting. The fact that the floor falls down doesn't really do anything. Because you see, when I play the game, I want to be doing cool stuff while dealing with obstacles. If I'm doing boring stuff, putting obstacles in there, that doesn't make the game interesting. It just doesn't. Like, if I'm just running down a corridor, not doing anything, and then there's a bunch of obstacles that I, like, press a button to jump over, it's not very interesting. But if I'm on a skateboard doing kickflips all the time to try and get a really high score, if you put an obstacle on the floor somewhere, then it becomes very interesting and very fun. But if the base gameplay of that is just not very fun, then the obstacles don't do anything. And because you only have the base gameplay and a handful of obstacles, it becomes very boring to play these extra arcade games. So for example, like I said, the isometric palace minigame, you also have the hurdle hijinks, which just goes on forever, even though all you do is just press left and right a bunch. I would have liked more, like you have a button for rolling. I know, like when I play the game, there are certain places where I do use the roll button, so it's not pointless, but what's the actual gameplay impact of that? And couldn't you have done something more amazing with that? Couldn't you have used the roll button in order to enhance the gameplay in a way to make everything fun, and then on top of that put the obstacles? That would have been way more interesting. And I think that's something that plagues every single extra arcade. Also Cardos Racing, but Cardos Racing is alright. It's also not too long, so whatever. So that's also something that external testing could have helped as well. And the bosses. A lot of the bosses are also not very great at all. Like, for example, over here we have Rampo. Rampo had the problem that with the camera and the jump height from your roll, it became really weird to get up there. I personally never had a problem with getting up there, but then again, if I want to pat myself on the back, I usually never have trouble, even with difficult stuff. Yeah, I'm just used to difficult stuff after playing so many games in my life that stuff like I didn't even think like that was difficult. I thought that this was actually very easy, and then was surprised when other people said that it was difficult. Well, that's just me. Anyway, it just most bosses don't really feel that nice. The third boss, the Trap the Tentacle, is just a bunch of dodging. It doesn't feel that interesting to just dodge a few tentacles a bunch. The boss looks cool, he has some nice humor, he makes some puns. I like that you can get HP out of the mushrooms, which probably over half the players don't even know, because it wasn't communicated to the player well enough that you could destroy mushrooms to get health out of them. How many people even know that? The fourth boss is an absolute travesty because he's just learning patterns. The first two phases, you just take hit after hit after hit, trying to learn patterns. If you have a lot of health, or you get lucky with the patterns, because you happen to jump at a good rhythm, then okay, you make it through. But if you have a bad rhythm, or you don't quite see what the patterns are, you use a speed up, because maybe a speed up helps, but then you realize, oh no, a speed up actually makes it so I take 2 hits, because now I have cooldown on it, and I'm in a bad jumping rhythm. Stuff like that. You can very easily screw yourself over on the fourth boss, because if you don't know the patterns, you just screw yourself over without even knowing it, and that's really, really bad. Also, in the second phase, when he fakes you out, I like faking out in general if you can react to it, but after he fakes out, if you jump, it's already too late. You cannot react to it anymore. You're gonna get hit, and maybe he doesn't fake out from the back. Maybe he doesn't fake out when he does it from the right. You don't know that. Maybe he doesn't. But he does, so you get hit again maybe. So that's 2 more health gone, and it feels really cheap. And I really don't like that. I feel like that's also something that external testers would have picked up on, especially when you have people that don't know the pattern. If you know the pattern, it doesn't seem that difficult anymore. Right now, I can beat the boss every single time without getting hit once. It feels very easy to me. Even after I've killed the boss the first time, I already felt like I could kill the boss without getting hit every time now, because I just learned the pattern. I like the third phase was really nice, because on the third phase, you get to see the pattern ahead of time, and then you get to plan. And I really am a really big fan of that, when you get to plan something ahead of time. Oh, such a big fan of that. I really like the third phase of that boss, but the first 2 phases, so weird. So yeah, I know I talked a lot about this stuff, but in general, let's bring it back. More external testing, different types of people that haven't played their content before will pick up on a lot of stuff that you maybe haven't quite picked up on, because you've gotten used to it, you've gotten good at it, you don't quite realize the mistakes anymore. Maybe there's some stuff with the development cycle where you wrote down at some point that something is not quite right and you're going to fix it later at some point. Maybe you forgot about that later, or you don't write it down again later when you do like a second pass or whatever. That's many different reasons why just internal testing can be a problem. If you did have external testers for like the full game, more external testing, that's still a thing, because like I said, that's all stuff that's going to be picked up on by external testers. We had the toy box. The toy box was really nice for finding bugs in the movement, in the physics, for seeing if in general the movement was alright, if it felt nice, if running around felt nice, which it did. The toy box fulfilled its purpose. However, there was a bunch... all the stuff that wasn't in the toy box that should have also been externally tested became a problem later in the game. And I think if Tony is watching this and you're not gonna take too much away from this video, at least take this away from the video. All the stuff we tested in the toy box was phenomenally great in the full game. The movement, how it felt to look around, the bugs with the movement were for the most part all taken out of the game. How the game should feel when you walk through everything, all of that were perfectly fine in the full game. But all the stuff that wasn't tested, like the bosses, Cardos, Rexro, those are like the 3 big points where people have a lot of trouble with the game, and that needs more testing externally. You can't do that internally because people get used to it and then you don't notice it anymore. Secondly, another point that I'm going to gloss over very quickly because there's not too much to say about it: take more time for development. I know it's always easy to say, well, if you just take more time, it becomes easier to make a better game. I know that there's certain restraints. You can't develop a game forever. I know that, but when you look at a game that has a bunch of problems with it, it becomes very easy to say that, of course, yeah, I guess if you had more time, it would have been made better. And I don't know what any of our finances or how the situation is like on, okay, if we delay the game by 1 month, what's gonna happen to us? Is it possible to delay it 1 month? Personally, I think that there's nothing to be gained from not delaying a game if you can delay a game and it doesn't go into your pockets too much, go in your pockets too much. I think, especially if you know that you've got problems with your game, if you know there are problems and you know that you can delay the game, do it. If you had delayed the game, I don't know if, like I said, I don't know if it's possible. I'm not a member of Playtonic. I don't know what the situation is like, but if it had been possible to delay the game for like 1 month to figure out more of the problems, to do the stuff that came with the patch and do that with release, that would have been way better. I think that would have helped a lot. And yeah, like I said, I'm not going to talk too much about this point because I don't know what it's like internally for Playtonic. Next up, taking a closer look at level design. So I also not going to talk too much about this because I talked about the level design for this game in 6 different videos that were all like over 40 minutes long. So I've talked a lot about the level design for Yooka-Laylee. But I'm going to say this, because this is, I think, one of the most central points to make about the level design of Yooka-Laylee. Or more, I'm gonna say a few points about this. First off, good landmarks for good and very clean and fun exploration. If you, like for example, if we take this stage for example, and you have over here the big monument, and you have the temple in the middle, those are 2 good landmarks. You come into the stage, you see the temple ahead of you, and you know that because the level entrance is on a cliff, you know that, okay, I'm on the edge of the stage right now, and I'm looking towards the center, and in the center we have the temple. That's very good level design. That's great level design. Why don't we have more of that? Why is level 2 absolutely failing at that? Because in the center of the stage, you don't really have a landmark. You just have a bunch of water and a bunch of icy pillars. Bunch of frozen pillars. Not very interesting to look at, not very easy to get a feel for the stage, and then you have a bunch of like teleports that teleport you across the map and also take you into a cave, and you don't actually quite know where you are, what you're doing. Third stage doesn't have any landmark. Okay, it does have a landmark, the big octopus building, but you never actually see that from afar until you're actually right in front of it, even though it looks amazing. The octopus building is my most favorite looking thing in the entire game, and you can only see it from like 10 feet away, because if you're any further than that, it's like behind a tree or whatever, because it's like surrounded by shit. Why? I'm getting worked up about this, but yeah, taking a closer look about that. I know that if you have level design that's being tested in beta, it's probably already too late to change too much stuff about it, but maybe talk about it a bit more earlier. Like, I've made a lot of videos, you know, if I want to like advertise myself. I talked a lot about all the stuff that was good and and even more about all the stuff that I thought needed to be improved, and maybe if you take some of those suggestions, maybe you can take that into the sequel with you and be like, okay, you want to make, like, the thing is, it's not that important, in my opinion, or in many people's opinions, I've talked to a lot of people, to make a complex stage. There's nothing to be gained from having a complex stage. The third stage, Moody Maze Marsh, if you're playing for the game, if you're playing for that stage the first time, it feels very complex. But you don't need to have that. You don't need to have that. It's more enjoyable if the stage feels more simple, more basic, but you get a sense of feeling that there's stuff everywhere that you want to explore. Kind of a bit like this stage, or like the 5th stage, Galaxy, where you can take a look around and you can get a very nice, good feel for the entire stage, how everything looks, and you're like, okay, I'm not gonna get lost in this because I already know what it looks like. I have a good landmark in the middle or anywhere in the stage that I can always take a look at and be like, oh, okay, I'm on this spot, I'm on that spot, landmark is over there, I've got in my head where I am. And it feels really nice if you have this like basic idea of the stage and then be like, oh, there's stuff over there, I want to go over there and explore that. And oh, I wonder what's behind here, I wonder what's behind there. That feels way better than playing for like Moody Maze Marsh, or I guess the first 5 minutes of Cable Casino, where you just come into the stage and you're like, what am I doing? There's like the one thing that I always hear people say when they play through Moody Maze Mod for the first time, not so more after the next, like the second or third time, but when they play through it, like the first time, they always go, what am I doing? Where am I going? Where have I even been to? Have I been over there yet? I don't know. Where is anything? Where do I want to go? Where can I get pages? Where are my quills? I don't know. I don't know anything. People get confused. They don't know where to go. It doesn't feel very nice. Complex stages, if done really well, can be very awesome. They can be very awesome. I would say that Click Clock Wood is a fairly complex stage because it has 4 different versions of it that all have different aspects to it. Like the treehouse is in different states throughout all the different phases. I would say that's rather complex. So I'm trying to think more of Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie, but Banjo-Kazooie actually has not that many complex stages. I think that Click Clock Wood is actually the most complex stage, most complex stage, and even that stage is very basic if you look at it just by going in. If you just go into the stage, okay, at first you see the 4 seasons, but then if you go to the first season, you're like, okay, it's just a tree and there's like a bit of an area around. Nice. I got an idea of what the stage is now, but I want to explore the tree. I want to go all over the place. That's how a good stage feels like, when you have a good landmark and a good basic idea, but it always feels like there's a bit more. That's something, and that's been something that's also this first stage does fairly well. I think this first stage does have its share of problems. It has a share of problems, but on a basic level, the first stage is doing a good job. Now, another thing about level design is you want to make sure that the quills, or in general your collectibles, are in places that make sense. I think every one of us knows a lot of like places where there were quills, where they were like, why is there a quill here in such a weirdly well hidden spot? And everyone who knows what I'm talking about is know exactly why I'm flying over to this spot right here. So when you have quills, usually when you look back at Banjo-Kazooie and you have the notes, what did notes do in that game for the player? Well, notes were really fun to run around and collect and follow. That's the thing. You wanted to follow the notes. This is this quill down here, by the way. Why? So you usually took the notes as sort of a reason to walk around the stage. Why would you want to walk around a big stage if there's nothing there? But if there's notes there, now you're running all over the place. There's a note there, let me go grab it. There's a line of notes there. I'm gonna go up and follow this line of notes to the next area because I want to collect the notes. This is what notes did in Banjo-Kazooie, and they did a really good job at that. It always felt nice if you saw some notes and you collected them, and then you were in a new area and you saw some new notes and you had this like flow, this really nice fluid flow to how you were exploring the stage and running around and moving through it. That felt really nice. I didn't get that in Yooka-Laylee. In Yooka-Laylee, it felt more like, here's a big stage with a lot of stuff in it. Have fun finding the quills. They're just hidden everywhere. I'm not sure about that anymore. Why are the quills... I mean, there are some places where quills are doing something similar to the notes, to what the notes were doing, but they weren't quite doing it that well. And there were some quills, like the quill that I was just at, that are just so far out of your way that you're wondering why that isn't like a secret. Like I said this about the pirate treasures. You could have made something like, okay, let's say the pirate treasures, there's more of them, and that treasure, that quill down there that I was just at below the temple, that could have been a pirate treasure, and then you have many pirate treasures hidden in really tough spots like that, where right now you have quills instead. And then when you get a secret, it doesn't feel like, oh, that's what the fucking quill is. Oh no. You get angry. You get angry when you find that quill. When people, when they find quill, they get angry or relieved. They don't feel satisfaction. They don't feel like, oh, I found a secret, yay. They feel like, why the fuck is this quill here and not in a better spot? That's what people feel like. So instead, put a secret down there, so then people will always be satisfied, because they didn't even know they were looking for it. They were just exploring the stage and they found something they weren't even looking for, and you're like, oh my god, I found a secret. Isn't that great? It feels really great when you found a secret that you didn't even know you were looking for. And that doesn't really happen in this game. It doesn't happen that much in Banjo-Kazooie either, but that's also because the stages were designed in a different way, where all the cool secrets that you could have found were, you know, the eggs, that they weren't actually opened. they were like behind the ice wall or whatever. It's a different kind of secret and mystery, but I mean, they could have potentially turned that into actual secrets, but yeah, no, whatever. Coming back to this game, I think even since they had some of the pirate treasures and the tonic system, I think they could have combined that pirate treasures unlock tonics. Could have totally had that. And then you put more pirate treasures in the game and secret locations like that, something for the sequel. I mean, this is what the video was supposed to be about, titles down here. That's something you can totally do with a sequel, where you have these secret locations. Instead of putting like mandatory things there that you are looking for all the time, you put something bonus there, something secret that you feel great for finding and that you can then use to enhance your gameplay in various ways, like with the tonics. Like, I'm not trying to do like completely overhauling the game. I'm not trying to say like, okay, everything you've done is shit, let's do it something completely different. I'm just saying like, okay, this is a very simple way of changing up the game just a little bit, like right now in terms of level design with the collectibles, and it could have a huge impact. But now also something that happens is you freed up a lot of the quills. All of the quills that were in these secretive locations or in these really weird locations, like why is there a quill, like why are there quills up there on this beam over there? I don't know why. It's really far out of your way. You're never going there for anything ever. Why are they there? To not make the world not feel as empty. That's not what quills are supposed to be for. Like I said, it feels really nice in Banjo-Kazooie. You can do something different than Banjo-Kazooie, certainly, but of course it should feel nice, and it should feel like there's some reason to it. But I don't see a reason other than it doesn't feel quite as empty for there to be quills up there, for example. But if you free up all of those quills, you can put them in many great locations. Like, for example, when you come into this stage right here, many people at first become a bit overwhelmed with the stuff to do. You can go over to the right, there's a ghostwriter over there, there's some quills below in the water, you have this temple over here, you have the left side. That is not inherently bad. It's not inherently bad. There's many different ways to go, but the player feels a bit overwhelmed at first because there's nothing to guide them. Imagine if there were some quills that led up here, that were like on this ramp. Suddenly the player feels guided. Feels like there is like an invisible hand that is pushing the player along without the player noticing they're being pushed along, but the player doesn't feel overwhelmed. They feel like they're exploring the stage in a meaningful way while collecting quills, something that they wanted to do the entire time anyway. So you see how suddenly there's this really nice flow going on, and how suddenly everything fits together and makes sense? But you don't have that here, and that's really sad. Something to do for the sequel. The collectibles are not just there to be collected. The act of collecting collectibles and the act of moving towards collectible is a part of exploration, and I want that to be back in the game like it was in Banjo-Kazooie, where moving towards collectibles and collecting collectibles was the exploration. It's not that you did exploration to get collectibles, or you did exploration and somewhere along the way you somehow found some collectibles hidden in some drawer or something. That's not what it's supposed to be like. So yeah, it worked really well for Banjo-Kazooie, and Banjo-Tooie to some lesser degree, because Banjo-Tooie had less collectibles like on the way, like notes or whatever. Yeah. But yeah, that's something, taking a look at the closer look at the level design. So yeah, we had level design, we had making sure that everything, you have the landmarks and everything is a bit more focused. More focused levels are always nice. Banjo-Kazooie has very good focus on what each stage should be like. And it really feels very great to play through those stages because they are so focused on, like I said, basic idea, nice landmarks, but there's a bunch of stuff all over the place that you're like, okay, I want to explore this stuff. And it doesn't feel cluttered, it doesn't feel complex, it just feels nice to run around and explore. And the collectibles help with that as well. Something else on top of that, if we're still talking about level design, is making sure it's something that also actually the collectibles factor in. Is if you, for example, look at the monument right here in the distance, a lot of people felt like once they got Fly, the monument became a bit boring because you could just fly up and grab your pages and then you're done. There's not that much to do on the monument anymore. And that's also something where collectibles can help a lot. Imagine if you had like the monument as it is right now, and another thing, take out the teleports. I'm not a fan of teleports because then it doesn't feel satisfying anymore to climb something. It feels very satisfying to see a big building and being like, I want to climb that, and then climbing your way up it using all the gameplay, I guess all your abilities that you've learned, all the moves that you've learned, and making your way up there, and then at the very end being down up there at the top, maybe getting 1 or 2 pages on the way or at the top, and then looking down and being like, I climbed this. That feels really great. That feels really satisfying. With the monument, you walk into a door, you walk into another door, you're at the top. Yeah, doesn't really feel satisfying at all. I can kind of understand why the flying sort of becomes a problem there, but this is where gameplay and collectibles come back into the game. So imagine that the monument was changed. There's no more teleporters now. There's actually like an actual way that leads all the way up. We have to do platforming to get up there. You could argue that, wait, but now people are just gonna fly up there. What's the point? People are just gonna fly up. Now you've added all these platforming segments, all these gameplay segments, but people are just gonna fly past them. What's the point? Why not just have the teleporters? But you see, if there are collectibles on the paths up, like on these platforms that you do, there's collectibles there, there's stuff to do. Maybe there's a ghostwriter every hero there on your way up between all of the other collectibles, or there's certain gameplay things to do, like you can do something here to earn a pagey, or here's something you can do to earn a molecule, or here's something where you could maybe find a secret. Maybe you want to find it, find out, like some intriguing looking path that maybe leads somewhere with also some collectibles around it. Oh, who knows? Like, if you put a bunch of gameplay and collectibles surrounding all of these different paths, people are not gonna fly over them. Why would you fly over collectibles in a collectathon, and why would you fly over gameplay in any game when you get something for it, like the collectibles? It all comes together, it all fits together, you see? So that's something, for example, at the monument, or this is just an example, but the monument is a good example for this. It happens like this all over the game, where it feels like the thought behind it was people are just going to fly over it once they have fly. Why should we bother making platforming? But this is a platformer. Why remove the platform because of the fly if instead you can design the platforming together with collectibles and your gameplay and your mechanics in such a way that flying over it becomes the non-desired solution, and playing through it and jumping all over it becomes the desired solution. I mean, if you've played through the entire thing once, like you've climbed it once, you've gotten all the collectibles on it, you've made your way painstakingly all the way up there, and then after that you get fly, and then after that you fly up, I mean, then it's okay, because you've already done it before. That's okay. But you have played through it at least once in that case then. Now, there are actually places in the game where you can get to with fly that has a bunch of gameplay in it, but you just fly over it because there's no collectibles there, there's nothing to do there, so you just fly over it and you're like, okay, I guess I've never been there because I just flew over it. So yeah, that's something to note with the level design as well. I know I talked a lot about level design once I start talking about it, but yeah, there's like the different points about level design. That's something the sequel absolutely needs to do. Take a closer look at that, with all the stuff that I said so far, all stuff that you all, I guess, have discussed internally as well, and make sure that the sequel doesn't fall short on these aspects. And one last thing is deliberating more on the game design choices. I've talked a lot about this in the testing as well, like a lot of the stuff that I said, like with the bosses, with Rextro, with Cardos. These are like all game design choices that were made in these areas that don't quite fit very well. And I guess I'm not going to say too much about it because I've already talked about this when I talked about the need for external testing. But yeah, if you have done this external testing and you figure out what all of these different problems are, of course definitely fixing them, and figure out more what you actually want to have game design wise. Like if you take a look at Rextro Arcade, for example, what's the idea behind Rextro Arcade? You could say the idea is just that, okay, we want to just have a bunch of games that look like they're a bit like arcadey. Okay, but just making games arcadey is not necessarily fun. You also want to make sure that the gameplay is fun. You want to make sure there's interesting and meaningful things to do, even if you are trying to keep it simple. Like I said, with the Ice Magic Palace mini game in there's nothing interesting to do. It's arcadey, but there's nothing interesting to do. This is like the game design is not quite on point in that stage, and then there needs to be more deliberation on what it should have actually been the point of that mini game. Because if you like sit down right now and you write down what is the point of that mini game, you run around, you collect quills. Huh. I mean, there's a bunch of obstacles. I mean, like the floor sinks at some point, but you don't really care, do you? Because it gets telegraphed. The telegraphing is good. Like I said, I like telegraphing. I like getting to be able to plan stuff, but it doesn't add much to it. Like I said, there's just obstacles in a game that doesn't have any interesting gameplays. The enemies don't do much. They just sort of sit around. If you write it down on paper, you see that where's the fun? Where's the interesting bit? Where's the uniqueness? Where's the thing that makes me want to play that mini game? It's not there. It's just not there. And that's something that I think that needs to be figured out for the sequel. So, I know I talked about this for a lot, like almost 40 minutes or something. But if I wanted to bring it all back together, bring it to a close, and put a lid on it, just very quickly go over it again. Keep these things, the humor and the style, very well. I really like the humor, I really like the style. I'm not saying graphic. I think graphically the game could have been improved, but the style is on point. I really like the style, I really like the humor, I really like the characters, the writing that's going on there. Even though there's not that much of it, I still like the fact that it's there. Keep that intact, definitely, for the sequel. The sequel needs that in order to thrive. Also make sure that the gameplay stays is fluid, the movement has a good flow, maybe iron out some few corners here or there, like I mentioned earlier, but for the most part, make sure the gameplay stays fluid and has a good flow. That's very important. It needs to be fun to walk around, fun to roll around, fun to move around in general. If you can move, if it's fun to move around your platformer, that's a very good thing. But also change a bunch of things, or do a few things different next time. One is make sure you have external testing or more external testing, if possible even early in development, but only sporadically. Like, you don't want to have too much of that in there, because then it can lead to other problems. Also, if you have one guy, if you like one guy that tests a game since alpha towards the end, then it might as well be internal testing, because he's like an ordinary member of the team at that point. So that's, like I said, get many different people at different points in development, and you can get a lot of really nice ideas on what's wrong with the game and what's good with the game. Another one, if it's possible, use more time, take more time, develop a game. Like I said, I don't know how it's internally, it might not be possible, but if it's possible to make the game better by putting more time into it, do it. Another thing, taking a closer look at the game level design, like a lot of the stuff that I've mentioned with the level design, like making sure that the basic idea that you get off the stage when you come into the stage is fairly simple. You have good landmarks that give you a good idea of what the topography of the level is like. You got a good inner map in your head. Like, as soon as you come into the stage, you got a good idea of where stuff is. Not where everything is, but you have an idea of where you have been, where you want to go, stuff like that. You have a sort of plan in your head of what you want to do. Something you don't have with Moody Maze Mars, for example. And that the collectibles make sense. Collectibles are supposed to lead you to the important areas. That's very important. It should be fun collecting collectibles. And if you find something that's very secret, there shouldn't be a mandatory collectible there that you want to find anyway, like the quills or a pagey. But instead, you could put something secret in there, something bonus. People like having bonuses for finding secrets. If they find something that is mandatory, they feel cheated. They feel like, why did they put something like this in the spot? That's aggravating me. Also, something to take a look at is deliberating more on the game design choices, which is something that's going to come up a lot more if you do external testing, where suddenly a bunch of game design choices that you have made might turn out by external people, not by internal people, but by external people that come to you and say, no, this is not good. And you might have to deliberate more on this and have more of a plan on what all of the game design choices actually accomplish within your game. So that's something that I want to see in the sequel. You might have noticed that I haven't actually said, here's something new that you should do, because I'm a firm believer that you don't need to do anything new in order to make a great game. You can just do something that has been done before, but do it perfectly. And that's still good enough to make a great 10 out of 10 game. You can make a 10 out of 10 game without having something absolutely new in it. Like, you could re-release a new game that is like Super Mario 64, doesn't have any more interesting or new gameplay than what Super Mario 64 has, but because you do everything so perfectly, the game design is on point, the level design is on point, placement of collectibles is on point, everything, the humor style, everything is on point. It's still a 10 out of 10 game, even if it doesn't have anything new in it. I feel like, for example, in this game, the new thing would be the expansions. And it's like expanding a world. Didn't quite work out as well, in my opinion. I guess that's also something that I could add for this, in what the sequel should do. If you cannot make the expansions feel unique, which right now they don't, none of the expansions actually feel unique, because they don't actually change the stage in any way. They just add a bunch of stuff to it. Like, I want an expansion to change the way the stage functions on a basic level. That would be amazing. But we got a little bit of a glimpse on it in this stage with the cloud that allows you to change the water level and then freeze it. That's really cool. That's something that changes the way the base stage works. But apart from that, what are all these other expansions like? Here's another island with more stuff on it. Doesn't feel very great, does it? Feels a lot greater when it actually changes the way you interact with the basic level. Imagine, like, I'll bring up always bring this up. Imagine if you had a stage like similar to Capital Casino, a stage with a lot of technology in it, with like funky lights or mechanical stuff in it, like electrical stuff is all over the place. And all the expansion does is like it adds a thing in the middle of the stage or somewhere in the stage where you can interact with electricity in some way. And say, okay, you play through the game stage normally, a bunch of stuff has power, a bunch of stuff doesn't have power, and stuff works in a certain way. Then you expand the world. All you get is the ability to change some electrical stuff around. Maybe you can flip a switch or whatever. It's not a lot of, didn't actually get a lot of new content to it in that sense. It's like, okay, it's like one more room or whatever, or one more thing that just spawned in the middle of the stage. There's not that much to it. But now, because you can change the electricity, now you have certain platforms, you can make them move a certain way. Or now certain doors that were opening and closing, maybe you could do something with that. Like maybe there was a door that opened and closed really fast and you couldn't get through because it just hurt you. You can cut the electricity, it stays open, nice. Or there's a certain mini game that works a certain way, but you can change the way the power works, give certain things power, take power from here, suddenly the minigame works differently. Oh my god, suddenly everything is different. That's one way how expansions could have been a meaningful impact on the stage. Right now, they just add another island. Not very interesting at all. Not very interesting at all. That said, I actually like the fifth one. A lot of people are going to be very mad at me saying that. I actually like the way the expansion worked in the fifth stage, to some degree. I didn't like the fact that you kind of had to expand it, because then it didn't feel special. But I like the fact that if you just go into the fifth stage normally, you've got like a tutorial on how the stage works, and you've got a very linear experience, or it feels like a microcosm on what the entire stage is like. And you get a good idea for what the idea behind the stage is, like some certain gameplay aspects. You get the molecule, you get the transformation. That's a really cool thing, and it's a very linear experience. You don't get lost, you get the landmark, feels nice. Then you expand it, and then it feels like, okay, now you've been trained in how the stage is supposed to work. Now here's a bigger stage, go nuts. I like the idea of that, but like I said, I also don't like the idea that it's kind of mandatory, or otherwise it feels very pointless. It doesn't feel like there's too much there. But yeah, so that's something. Expansions, change them or take them out. If you take them out of the sequel, I think that wouldn't be a loss. I actually don't think that would be a loss, in my opinion. Doesn't sound too nice on paper if you advertise with it. Hey guys, we've taken out some content stuff. People will be like, yeah, wait, what? Why? But I personally think that it's more important to make a great game. Or, like I said, you could also just change the way the expansions work, like I've told you guys. Change the way expansions work. That could have also been something, but make sure that that's something that could make the game feel unique. But it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. You don't have to have this like cool new mechanic that you write on your box art that everyone's gonna be like, oh my god, this game has that in it. That's amazing. I mean, it sells the game better, but does it actually sell the game better if then people complain that it's shit? I'm not sure on that, because suddenly then, I think actually if you have a game that has a really good rating on it, I think that actually sells better than having something on the box art. Like one line on the box art says includes expansions. I don't know. It's a wonky topic to talk about that. I don't want to talk about sales or anything here or what makes the game sell better or whatever. But I mean, I know that's also something that needs to be taken into account. But yeah, like I said, I'd rather have, don't put too much crazy, complex, new, unique stuff in it. Just make sure that everything fits together nicely. Everything makes sense in the game. Take a bit extra time if you have to, and mind all the points that I said. So yeah, I've talked about like almost 50 minutes about this. I've talked about it for a really long time. But yeah, that's all of that. So if you, that might actually have been my last Yooka-Laylee video, I'm not sure. But yeah, that was that. If you guys want to see me ramble a bit more about game design, level design, currently on my stream I'm playing through a lot of like Super Mario 64 ROM hacks. So I'll talk a lot about the ROM hacks as well. You can join me on my stream as well. Stream like almost every day, at least right now, at somewhere around after 20 or 21 CEST. That's usually when I stream. So yeah. Also write me a comment if you want to talk to me about anything. So yeah, that's about it. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys next time.